we've read the Iliad and the Odyssey. So Homer becomes the basis for Greek civilization, meaning that all educated Greeks, they memorize the Iliad and the Odyssey. People don't read and write now at this point. They speak and they listen in front of an audience. And so Homer becomes basically the infrastructure of their mental worldview. And this leads to the greatest civilization in human history. But eventually, the Romans will conquer the Greeks. The Romans will conquer the entire Mediterranean, and they will create the Roman Empire. The Romans are nothing like the Greeks. The Greeks are very open, very curious. They believe in the idea of arete, and eudaimonia. Arete means excellence, to be the best at what you can. Eudaimonia means flourishing. You can only achieve human happiness if you achieve your arete, okay? You become your arete. So think of Odysseus, who was a great speaker. That is his arete. And he uses his speech in order to fulfill his destiny and to save his family, okay? And that achieves eudaimonia. The Romans are very different. The Romans believe in the idea of piety. Okay, and piety just means obedience to your fathers, to history, and to tradition. And so the Romans are an extremely conservative people, but they're very good at fighting wars, and that's why they become the empire. But after the empire is established, what the Romans recognize is that Greek culture is vastly superior, and many well-educated Romans begin to drift towards Greek culture, which in the Roman perspective leads to the corruption of the Roman soul. And so Augustus Caesar, who is really considered the first emperor of Rome, he recognizes that in the long term, even though the Romans have conquered the Greeks physically, spiritually, the Greeks will conquer the Romans. And the main issue is Homer. So his solution is to destroy Homer. You can't burn books because there aren't that many books, and also people have memorized Homer. So you need to corrupt Homer. And the solution that he devises is called the Aeneid. And we can consider the Aeneid as the anti-Homer, okay, or the inversion of Homer, taking the ideas of Homer and inverting them. Okay? So this becomes the Bible of the Roman Empire, meaning that if you're a schoolboy, you have to memorize the Aeneid. And this is the main way that you learn Latin, the official language of the Roman Empire. And so whereas Homer will give us Greek civilization and the birth of Western civilization, the Aeneid will create the Dark Ages, about 1,000 years when Western creativity ends. And then someone will emerge who will recognize the evil that is the Aeneid. And he will create an antidote to the poison that is the Aeneid. And this person, of course, is called Dante. Okay? And so what we'll do is we will read the Aeneid for the next 2 weeks and understand how it poisons and corrupts Homer. And then this will lead us to the Divine Comedy, which is really the liberation of the human soul from the poison that is the Aeneid. Okay? All right. So some basic background about the Aeneid. So the Aeneid, what it does is it replicates both the Odyssey and the Iliad. The Aeneid is 24 books. The first 12 books models of the Odyssey. The last 12 books models of the Iliad. So the story begins when Aeneas, he is one of the survivors of the fall of Troy. Okay? And so he takes his father and his child to go off to the Italian peninsula because the gods have told him that he is fated, he is destined to found the Roman Empire. And that's why the gods had to destroy Troy in order to create the Roman Empire. But as he sails to the Italian peninsula, there's a shipwreck and he lands in Carthage. Okay? Carthage. And there he meets the Queen Dido. And the Carthaginians and Dido are extremely hospitable to Aeneas. And so they have this huge banquet, and Aeneas is telling her about the story of the fall of Troy, how Troy fell. Remember that Homer doesn't actually discuss the fall of Troy, but Aeneas will discuss the fall of Troy. And by discussing the fall of Troy, his main purpose is to show how duplicitous, manipulative, deceptive the Greeks are. Okay? He's also going to tell us why the values of Homer are evil, why love is evil, why love will lead you into tragedy. And then by telling the story, what will happen is that Aeneas will seduce Dido. Dido will fall in love with him, because not only is he brave and handsome, but he's also a great poet. He's able to tell the story in a beautiful manner. And so they fall in love, okay? All right, so this is the beginning of the Aeneid. And so what we're gonna read first is Aeneas' story of the fall of Troy. It begins when the Greeks pretend to leave the beaches of Troy, and they leave behind a wooden horse. Okay? And there's a huge debate among the Trojans as to what to do with this horse. And they decide, basically, we can't take a risk. Let's just destroy this horse, throw it into the sea. And then what happens is that a Greek soldier emerges. And he's a prisoner. He was caught by some shepherds. And he tells a story of the Trojan horse and why it's really not a threat to the Trojans. In fact, it's a gift from the Greeks to the gods. So because it's a gift to the gods, you cannot destroy it, because then you piss off the gods. Okay? And what this is going to show us is that the Greek culture, philosophy, theater, rhetoric, it's all one of deception. The real Trojan horse is Greek culture. You cannot let Greek culture into Rome, because then it will corrupt and poison the empire from within. Okay? So again, this is propaganda. So it's very blatant what they're doing. Okay? It's very blatant what Virgil is doing. And okay, something I need to explain is like Virgil is considered the poet who composed this Aeneid, but it was actually Augustus Caesar who wrote this. Basically, Augustus Caesar was one who provided Virgil with a framework, and then Virgil composed it into Latin poetry. And actually, at the end of his life, Virgil actually wanted to burn this down, burn this. And the reason why is that if you're a poet, what you believe is that your gift comes from the gods. And so you represent the gods. But if you actually work for the empire, if you actually use your gift for the emperor, then maybe the gods will punish you, right? So Virgil was very much afraid and wanted to burn the Aeneid, but Augustus Caesar would not let him. And so this became the Bible of the Roman Empire. It is a evil, evil piece of work, okay? And it is the anti-Homer. So we're gonna study it because it's gonna shape Western civilization throughout the Middle Ages until the coming of Dante, okay? So, all right. So, Ivory, can you read, please?
Yeah. Suddenly, in the thick of it all, a young soldier, hands shackled behind his back, with much shouting, Trojan shepherds were hauling him toward the king. He'd come on demand by chance, a total stranger. He'd given himself up with one goal in mind, to open Troy to the Greeks and lay her waste. He trusted to courage, nerved for either end, to weave his lies or face a certain death. Young Trojan recruits, keen to have a look, came scurrying up from all sides, crowding round, outdoing each other to make a mockery of the captive. Now, hear the treachery of the Greeks and learn from a single crime the nature of the beast. Haggard, helpless, there in our midst he stood, all eyes riveted on him now, and turning a wary glance at the lines of Trojan troops, he groaned and spoke. Where can I find some refuge? Where on land, on sea? What's left for me now? A man of so much misery. Nothing among the Greeks, no place at all. And worse, I see my Trojan enemies crying for my blood. His groans convince us, cutting all our show of violence short.
Okay, so at this time in history, and this is about 30 BCE, Greek theater is very, very popular. The Romans love Greek theater. And Greek theater is really the very paragon of Greek civilization. And what this is telling us is that no, Greek theater is evil. It's meant to deceive us. Okay, so this soldier, this Greek soldier, he is trained in theater. He's trained in philosophy. He's trained in rhetoric. And he's using all his craft, all his skills in order to ultimately deceive the good but naive Trojans. Okay? All right. So he tells the story of how he came to be left behind in Troy. And the story is that he pissed off Odysseus, and Odysseus plotted against him. So when it came time for the Greeks to leave Troy and sail home, they needed to sacrifice a person. And that person was this guy. But somehow this guy ran off, okay? Okay, can you read, Ivory?
The day of infamy soon came. The sacred rites were all performed for the victim, the salted meal strewn, the bands tied round my head. But I broke free of death, I tell you, burst my shackles, yes, and hid all night in the reeds of a marshy lake, waiting for them to sail, if only they would sail. Well, no hope now of seeing the land where I was born, or my sweet children, the father I longed for all these years. Maybe they'll wring from them the price for my escape, avenge my guilt with my loved ones' blood, poor things. I beg you, king, by the powers who know the truth, by any trust still uncorrupt in the world of men, pity a man whose torment knows no bounds. Pity me in my pain. I know in my soul I don't deserve to suffer. He wept and won his life, our pity too. Priam takes command, has him freed from the ropes and chains that bind him fast, and hails him warmly. Whoever you are, from now on, you've lost the Greeks. Put them out of your mind and you'll be one of us. But answer my questions. Tell me the whole truth. Why did they raise up this giant, monstrous horse? Who conceived it? What's it for? Its purpose? A gift to the gods? A great engine of battle?
Okay, so again, this reminds us of the Iliad, where Priam, the king of the Trojans, is known for being a very generous, benevolent, open person. But this will lead to the doom of Troy. So remember in the Iliad, it is because of Priam's generosity, his ability to forgive Achilles, that leads to the great friendship between Priam and Achilles, okay? And again, Virgil's trying to reverse this. And he's trying to show us that, no, you think that generosity will lead to goodness. No, generosity will lead to evil. You see how Priam is too trusting, too generous. And so he believes this Greek soldier, and then he will allow the Trojans to bring the horse into Troy, and at night, the Greek soldiers will escape from the horse, open the gates of Troy, and now the Greeks are rushing in to kill everyone. Okay? And Aeneas hears this slaughter, and he tries to save as many people as he can. And his first thought is, where is my king? How do I save my king? Okay? So as the Greeks are ravaging the city, killing as many people as they can, Aeneas is rushing to save his king Priam. All right? All right, so can you read, Ivory?